Interesting. Localization. What other term? Trust-based. What's that? Local capital, right? Any other? Systematic change, yes. Inclusive by design. It shows which masterclass you went before this one. What's that? Trust-based. All right. I see you've been spread around. So welcome to the room that we finish in. And good afternoon, everyone. It's exactly 20 minutes to 3 o'clock. We have until 5 before the rest of the team comes. And my duty this afternoon is to try and anchor us. So welcome to this final masterclass of this convening. Save the best for last, right? So my name is Maxi Eric Gitau, and beyond facilitating conversations like this one, I lead development dynamics, where much of our work really sits at the intersection of ideas, institutions, and the futures that we are building across Africa. We have our own number of platforms, some that are not AI powered, but AI supported. And so as I sit here, I am sitting with some of the questions that you also probably are sitting with about how emerging shifts from leadership to philanthropy to identity, technology, and culture, how all of those are shaping the continent's trajectory. And this conversation this afternoon is particularly important to me. And I hope you can find yourself, trace yourself. I'm doing this purposefully so that you can trace yourself too. AI is a question about how African institutions build capacity, exercise agency, and shape their own future. I have the joy of holding this room with you, and it is fitting to end the entire conference with this particular conversation on AI as operational infrastructure for philanthropic organization. I think by the time we all come in now to the final room of this conference, a lot of us are carrying a sudden honesty and a real desire for action. I think by now, even when we say the keywords that we are saying, we all are looking at this and saying we want to go beyond the talk, and we are here to determine what we will actually do with all this knowledge and information. So it's in one way a very good stage of the conference to be in. It's on another way not the luckiest portion to take, because there is already too much information that has been received over the last couple of days. But the session this afternoon is designed to be in a way that it engages us a little deeper. So in an effort to just try and contextualize for us, AI, as we know it, has entered the room. It's in this room. It's in drafting emails, creating up notes, translating texts, sorting data, summarizing meetings, generating proposals, assisting research, shaping communications, and participating in strategy meetings, actually. AI is probably in this conference. Someone has clicked an AI recorder so that you get a summary of the meeting. It's not bad at all. AI is already part of our daily workflows. Our goal is to ensure that by the time we are leaving here as individuals and as institutions, we feel, we check ourselves and we see whether, are we ready for it? And if we are ready for it, at what level of readiness are we for it? And readiness is a spectrum, as we will be seeing this afternoon. This masterclass provides a great preparation point, and because we are addressing an ecosystem divide. Well, while many organizations use AI, we aim to ensure deep institutional improvement for all of our organizations that are here. Everyone who is seated here ideally today should live with a better understanding and a greater level of readiness. This requires some times for us to establish formal governance, to train our staff or consultants that we work with to develop some robust policies. And the objective today is to build the texture that it takes for us to say that we can hold these tools, we can hold AI responsibly and effectively across our role in the ecosystem. And for us on this continent, for us who are working for Africa, there is another and more pressing issue sitting quietly under the table. African philanthropic institutions will shape their own adoption of AI in ways that reflect our realities, our values, our risks, and our resourcing, and our relationships with community. And that, when we look at that, we see it's a question of sovereignty, we see it's a question of stewardship, a question of justice. And so I invite us into this room, as I have been doing in other masterclasses and in other work streams. I invite you to wear 3 lenses as we take it on from here with the support of the team that's here. First, let's stay close to the actual organizational life. The small nonprofit with no AI policy. The foundation that's curious about use cases but unsure about ethics. The team that has ChatGPT open in 6 browser tabs and no shared protocol for what should or what should not go in there. The executive director, I see a couple of you, who has had just enough about AI to feel both excited and mildly haunted. This room is full, or is for real institutions with real constraints, with real trade-offs, with real staff, and with real consequences. So let's stay grounded to that. The second part, let's connect. Let us notice how all of the pieces belong together. AI literacy for decision makers, governance, privacy, bias, accountability, staff confidence, use cases, build, buy, or partner choices. The tool alone will not save anybody. What matters is the operating environment around it. And this is a masterclass on infrastructure, which means we are interested in the wiring, the guardrails, the habits, the judgment, and the pathways that make AI useful rather than noisy. And finally, lastly, the third is about disrupting. This moment that this masterclass holds is rearranging institutional life. The room gives us a chance to define responsible use, ethical requirements, and true readiness. We will choose adoption pathways that deserve to grow, and we are in very strong hands to do so. We have a team from TechSoup, and we have a team from Vera Solutions. So I will invite them to come. I don't know if you want to sit up on the huge chairs, or you want to do it from here. I'll invite you though to come and introduce yourself and tell us what to expect over the next, say, 2 hours, 1 hour, 50 minutes or so. What to expect and how we stay grounded, what are the connections that we need to remain visible, and how we disrupt the lazy version of adoption. And please leave us very excited to close the workshop or the conference, but also very enthused to carry AI with us in the most responsible way. Over to you.
Hello, everybody. We're still waiting for our first presenter here. He's busy setting up back there, but what we're hoping to do today is give you some more practical tools to evaluate AI use cases, some frameworks to think about ethics, to think about data privacy, some other considerations that look at AI not as a magic thing, but as a tool that you can use to optimize your workflows. We're going to do a workshop session. We're going to have to probably rush through some of a presentation because we're a little behind, and we want to focus on the workshop. So the workshop is kind of hopefully a key takeaway, where you'll just go through and do some analysis on a spreadsheet of different AI use cases. as a group, and then decide whether it's a good use case or not, and then go back and present to the rest of the group. And then our colleagues from TechSoup here will be focused on some of their frameworks, and they can quickly, I think we can just start, yeah, just in the interest of time.
Hello, so as I just told you a little bit about what we are planning to do, now you can see the presentation, that's good. That's progress. Mosquitoes. Many challenges to start. No, okay, so today we're here to tell you a little bit what TechSoup and Vera are trying to do to support organizations using AI. Obviously, it's a big challenge. AI represents a big potential, but also carries a lot of risks. So what's important, sorry guys, I think we need to skip a little bit forward to understand a little bit how we can support the civil society sector with resources and tools that can enable you to work efficiently. I am representing TechSoup, and TechSoup is an organization that is operating globally since 1987. It's a global platform for technology access, learning, support, working with civil society organizations worldwide. At the core of TechSoup's works is a simple mission. We try to build a bridge that leverages technology to enable connections and innovative solutions for a more equitable planet. Today, AI is becoming a key part of this bridge. In the last 12 months alone, TechSoup has supported over 300,000 organizations worldwide. So what we're sharing today is grounded not just in theory, but in what we're seeing across thousands of real organizations navigating digital transformation challenges. And one key initiative of TechSoup is the Digital Activism Program that I am happy to represent here. Since 2018, the program has been strengthening civil society by equipping organizations with practical skills, digital tools, access to global learning communities. And the focus is simple, to help organizations use technology more effectively and to become more resilient and rapidly adapting to the changing digital landscape. And AI now is a major part of this journey. A part of this work happens through the HiveMind platform, which is a global online learning space where organizations can build digital resilience, they can share best practices and learn from each other. It includes courses, tutorials, tools, case studies. It's available in 16 languages, co-created with local partners. It's not just content, it's a community, and it's completely free of charge. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how we work, and a part of our methodology that is very important is the research and the mapping that we conduct every time we want to launch a new project. So, shifting into the research behind today's insights, I will invite you to connect to the menti.com and enter this code that you have there, because we will have a couple of questions for you in a couple of minutes. But basically, in late 2025, we conducted a multi-country mapping exercise. We did this in 9 countries across Europe and Africa. To the survey, we collected almost 1,000 responses, and we also developed several in-depth case studies to inform our research further. This gives us a strong evidence base for what we are about to explore today. And the first insight, here it's time to get your phone up and running. It's simple, but it's also very important. The foundational gap that we have identified is real. Let's see. If you are already there, you can have 30 seconds maybe to answer to this question. You can also go menti.com and use the code if the QR is not working. This is the same question we asked to the respondents to our survey. So it's interesting for me to see. Should I go back? Still? I see still people scanning. Yeah. It's better to use the one on the side because this one, the shape is not the original one, I guess. But I see 50 people, so maybe let's just see. Okay. Okay. And these are actually the results that we have collected in our survey when answering to this specific question. I'll leave it for you, and maybe I will also come back for you to compare a bit what are the answers in the room. Lack of funding, limited digital skills, similar. Lack of funding, limited digital skills, lack of affordable technical support. These are the main barriers across regions that organizations are facing when it comes to digital participation. So this means that even before we can talk about AI, we need to recognize that many organizations are still building the foundations for digitalization. So we need to be aware of that when we try to create tailored intervention with the work that we deliver. And here's also, not here, an interesting paradox. 81% of the organizations say that they have a digital champion inside, but that alone is not enough to drive real change. So at the same time, 79% say improving digital skill is still a top priority. So capability is recognized, but not yet fully built at scale in the organizations. When we combine this with AI, the challenge becomes even clearer. Two key gaps stand out: cybersecurity. Many organizations lack basic protection, making them vulnerable. And data management. So data is often fragmented, so this makes using AI effectively even more difficult because data is the fuel of AI. And here comes the next insight. So AI readiness is very uneven. Next question. So what is your relationship with AI? Your organization relationship with AI. Testing the waters, confident users, curious but cautious, total strangers, power users, or it's just complicated, so I don't want to talk about it. I see. So majority is testing the waters, curious but cautious, understandable. Some confident users, which is good. Looking at the actual result that we collected, here you see a distinction between Africa and Europe, but the situation, as you see, it's very similar. So testing the waters, curious but cautious, these are the ones that stand out more. A little bit more confident users in Europe, but not that many. Organizations are in general at very different stages. So some are experimenting, some are cautious, some are not using AI at all. But at the same time, the demand is very high. So 49% in Europe and 87% in Africa say that AI is very important for their work. So we have an important gap between capability and interest here. And insight number 3, here no question for you, but demand for AI is practical, it's not theoretical. So the organization are not asking what is AI, they are asking how can this help me today. So top needs include, for example, when it comes to daily productivity, writing reports, creating content, translating, summarizing, but also role-specific needs. For example, leaders needs it for governance and strategy, fundraisers for storytelling and authenticity, program managers for data and impact, tech teams for security and integration. So the key takeaways is that AI needs to be embedded into the real workflows, not treated as a separate topic. And this is very important. Last question, I promise, at least from me. Insight number 4. So might be actually the most important one. So ethics and trust are the gateway to adoption. Again, vote. So what are the main challenges for you when it comes to AI adoption? Lack of knowledge, cost of implementation, data privacy concern, ethical concerns. Data privacy concerns stands I. Lack of knowledge as well. Ethical concern. So here you can see the actual results. Again, distinguish between what we found out in Africa and what we found out in Europe. Again, similar. Data privacy and security, ethics, misinformation, authenticity, and also quality, in a way, of what AI can produce. And importantly, only 8% have an AI policy, and 39% don't know how to ensure data security. So this is not just a technical challenge, but in a way, it's also a trust challenge. So what do organizations actually need? They need like funding for AI adoption. They need training tailored to civil society organization and not just any training on AI. And access to expert guidance. So this reinforces that adoption is not just about tools, it's about an ecosystem support that we need to build. Finally, the insight number 5, the advanced users and the interesting developments. Here you can see that the small group, just about 4.5, are already advanced users, and how they are advanced users, what they do with it. They manage to build strong local ecosystems that matter. Collaboration accelerates adoption. It's another element that came out. And the organization are already building AI-enabled solutions. So progress is happening in the sector, but unevenly. So this is where we need to intervene. But what it actually means for us. So what does this mean when it comes to how we want to operate? We need to operate on 2 levels. This is what the research is telling us. We need to operate on a short term to help with immediate productivity gains, but we also need to operate in the long term. So to build strategy, governance, data capacity, and importantly, tailor approaches by role, by level of maturity, and address as well the ethical concerns. So what did we do? We try to answer to these needs by building what we call the AI resource library. It focuses on skills, tools, and community. And what's important, it goes beyond simple productivity. It includes ethics, safety, long-term impact. It's role-specific. It's open access, free of charge, multilingual, and designed to support real CSO's decisions. This is what you will find already inside the library, already published. So tutorials like responsible AI roadmaps and how to build one, articles, data security guides, a self-paced course that is going to be launched next week on AI literacy foundations, tools, but also learning nuggets, so small piece of content, educational content. And these are all grounded in real scenarios like grant writing, onboarding, communication strategy. The goal is simple, like we need to turn AI from experimentation into a structured capability. And what is coming next? No, this is not what's coming next. Oh yeah, this is what's coming next. So since next month, we will have a full e-learning suite, including other 3 self-paced courses, one on AI for communication, one on AI for digital safety, one on AI for integration, information integrity, plus a trainer's toolkit with ready-to-use curricula, which means that you can take it, use it, and maybe replicate the training also in your organizations. There are like step-by-step instructions to actually deliver a training on this topic. So the idea here is not just learning, but enabling you to bring this back into your organizations and implementing it at scale. So to summarize, the demand for AI is high. The readiness is uneven. Success depends on combining technology, skills, trust, and strategy. So what we're trying to do here is to support organizations to actually operationalize AI. So follow us here to stay updated and access all the resources that we are developing in the next few months, again, completely for free. And I will give the floor to my colleague Kevin from TechSoup Africa.
Hello, everybody. As you may have seen in your program, some of you may have been expecting Melvin Chibole. I am not him. My name is Kevin Miner. He sends his apologies as he was unable to be here today. So I am, as Francesco said, my name is Kevin Miner. I am a program manager at TechSoup Africa. So I'll continue. Oh, I did something wrong. Got it. Okay. So, following what Francesco just introduced to us, I will now speak about a digital resilience program that we run as TechSoup Africa, and also in collaboration with the TechSoup team from Poland. So this is a digital resiliency program which we have run in Africa for African organizations over the last 2 years. And I'll just kind of give you a breakdown of how it played out, using some of the insights that Francesco has just mentioned, and looking forward to the organizations ahead. So, please forgive me as I get used to this clicker. So, why digital resilience? Resilience it's used in a variety of ways in different places, but for us, and for this program particularly, we refer to resilience as adaptability, the capacity to adapt to a changing situation, a changing environment for everybody. Why is digital resilience important for nonprofits? Well, because a resilience, not just digital resilience, will help your organizations and help organizations in general navigate any disruptions that may arise, that may occur, that may stop what you're doing, change or alter the course of your initial mission, and slow you down a little bit. Without resilience, it'll be fairly difficult for you to proceed. The digital resilience program came as a result of the effects of COVID-19 and how we're all familiar with that, so I won't belabor the point. But the challenge that we had, that we noticed that organizations were facing, was how to emerge strongly from that changing environment. So our goal was to accelerate digital transformation for these organizations by packaging all the experience, all the knowledge, all the partnerships and services that we have accrued over the last 30 plus years of TechSoup into one holistic program that can equip organizations to move forward in a strong manner. So we chose our target demographic, at least for the last cohort, were nonprofits with a nascent digital footprint in Kenya, specifically Kenya. The previous cohort was around Africa, but for the one that I'll speak about specifically, we conducted this in in Kenya, sorry. So this was a basic flow. Yeah, okay. All right. Is that okay? Okay, cool. So the first thing we did was identify a tech champion. A tech champion would be the representative of the organization, the intermediary between TechSoup and the organization, that would be the channel of information that would relay the information that we are empowering them with to the organization and begin to effect change internally. This did not have to be somebody with tech experience, digital experience in any way, just somebody who was enthusiastic about the idea and the notion of the possibilities that exist. Once that was done, we would then move on to the next stage, which is the cybersecurity awareness training. In this ever-changing digital environment that we find ourselves in, it is extremely important to be aware of how your data is managed, how to secure yourself, your presence, your identity, the information that you share and hold. So we took the tech champion and some representatives of the organization through a cybersecurity training just to alert them about the risks involved as they navigate the digital sphere. Part 3 would be the needs assessment. Now, this part I need to emphasize was a fact-finding mission, not a fault-finding mission. We're not looking to find all the holes and all the gaps and say, look, you're horrible, you're terrible, you've missed this. That's not the point. It was simply to identify the lay of the land so that we know how to proceed. And that would be followed up by the roadmap development. So under the roadmap development, taking all the insight that we'd have gathered from the needs assessment, we put together a plan of action. What do we do, how will we do it, and when will we execute it, in collaboration with the organizations. So if I could go back a little bit, the needs assessment was conducted in collaboration with the organization, and at the end we had a sort of evaluation of what the top priorities are. So when we created the roadmap development, then we came to an agreement about what would happen. I failed to mention this at the beginning, but the cohort, the period of time spent with the cohort was anywhere between 6 to 12 months, depending on the scope of work. Once the roadmap development was agreed upon, we would then move on to the implementation and then finally conduct the assessment to see where we were. So this is the scoring methodology. Please allow me to spend a bit of time here. Okay, right. So this is the scoring methodology that we used when having our conversation with these organizations. We found this, the scoring methodology, I'll take us through the left panel first before going up that way, assesses people, the people in the organization. It also reviews the technology that's available to the organization, also aspirationally, and then also evaluates a process that governs how those two operate together. So from our experience, like I mentioned, we have been able to categorize organizations in 5 main categories. We have ad hoc here, and I'll just give a quick overview of what that would look like. Here, the technology culture of the people was fairly resistant. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and in Kenya we'd say such people are analog. You know how things used to work, and it stays that way. You don't need to change it. If it worked then, I don't need to change it, right? And as a result, skills training tend to be, there's very little, it's actually little to none. That technology approach tends to be very haphazard. I've been asked for an email, so I probably need to set an email up. I don't know, I need that. How will I manage how my team works? They'll send me a text and tell me about how many hours is spent on a certain project. Very little structure around that. So the state of technology is limited and their data systems are improvised. Of course, please forgive me as I have hyperbolized some of these things just for greater understanding. So that is the ad hoc category. Next we have functional. Here, the technology culture is neutral. We're neither opposed to it, the team is neither opposed to it, nor very excited about it. And so their skills training is as needed or as forced or as required, nothing beyond that. So the technology tends to be, the approach to technology tends to be reactive, the state of technology very basic, maybe not very basic, but basic. We have what we absolutely need to make things work. And the data systems are decentralized. So there's one person there who controls our server. Our website is managed by another guy who works in a different company. He has the logins. Our QuickBooks is, so on and so forth. Then third, we have the standardized approach. Here, the technology culture is more receptive than the previous two, and the skills training is general. Beyond what we're compelled to do, as staff members or as volunteers or as partners, we also are keen to look for other things and find and do them ourselves. So the technology approach here is more hybrid, and the state of technology is general. It's above basic, and there's a more distinct centralization of our data systems. Now, perhaps my examples were not ideal. Made it sound a little worse than they should have been. But we found that most organizations tend to be within the first two categories, ad hoc and functional. Not the cream of the crop, but the very next level are standardized. But there are very few that fall under section 4 and 5, optimized and adaptive. So under optimized, those guys there are actively seeking information. They're trying their best to get even more advanced skills training. They're very proactive to their approach. It's not based on, we were hacked last week, so we need to get a new antivirus today, and there's a phishing attack. No, it's very proactive, trying to foresee what's going to go ahead there. And the organizational processes are comprehensive. Standardized, we tend to have the organizational processes documented. Let me go back there for ad hoc, functional, and standardized with regard to organizational processes. Under ad hoc, we'd find most, in this category, organizational processes are very individual. For me, I like to communicate via WhatsApp. Someone else is communicating on email with the official documentation. When you move on to functional, it's more informal. We kind of know everyone knows what they ought to do, but there's no policy. There's no documentation to support that. So our goal was to move these organizations from category 1 up to standardized. Let me move on to the next one. We were seeking, this is the assessment overview, and this is what we are looking at. We were seeking to establish the organization setup in the following: their digital security, so that they operate in a safe environment, right? The next part was to ensure that their program delivery and management was up to par, up to a level that they're not just comfortable, but they're moving up the chain. We also wanted to establish communication and marketing to equip them to aptly handle their communication and their marketing, to improve their operation and collaboration, and of course, finally, to see what hardware and infrastructure they need to acquire or implement to improve their operations. These are the common gaps that we were able to find across the various cohorts that we've conducted. The first, there were gaps in communication and collaboration. Like I just mentioned, some people will be using, for those organizations that have access to this, some will be using Google Suite, the free Google Suite for all communication. Someone else will be using Microsoft products. Others will be using WhatsApp. It's very difficult to communicate actively, appropriately, and in a transparent manner when you're all in diverse sections. Of course, that affects your collaboration. Next, their online presence was wanting in one way or the other. As we've talked about here, the importance of telling your own story as the people, as the organizations most proximate to the problem is a very intense need. So we noticed a gap there that could be filled. Similarly, cybersecurity awareness, so that comes down to the risks on data protection, so on and so forth. Tech support. These organizations didn't have resources internally to manage all the requirements that perhaps they need to look at. So if something goes wrong with your laptop, who do you go to? We don't have someone internally to refresh the internet, someone to watch over our server if we have one. I see policies and documentation. Things were not written down. Nobody knows how we're supposed to use what we have, which also ties into IT audit plans. So we know what we need to get, but we don't know what we have. We don't know who has what we have and what they're doing with it. Then, of course, there's business continuity procedures. If someone leaves the organization, if a volunteer leaves and they worked with you for a period of time, there's a high likelihood that they leave with either passwords, documentation, information that maybe they shouldn't have. So having identified those gaps, we would then go into the roadmap development. So the first was to secure these organizations' operations immediately. So first thing was to implement the security and multi-factor authentication, come down to device management. Who has what? How do you secure it? Does everyone use a password? Do we have active password monitoring and refreshing in case things go wrong? How do we back up our data? Once that's done, once your identities and your data is secure, then you move on to the next stage, which is communication and marketing. For those smaller organizations like this one that comes to mind that only had 2 members of staff, more often than not, marketing and communication takes a backseat. But like we've talked about the importance of telling your story, this is something that requires active effort. And then now, I'll refer to it as capacity building, but having received certain elements like, say, subscriptions for certain services online, maybe a Microsoft subscription, Google Suite, maybe you don't have QuickBooks, we enroll you and enlist you to that. Then now we move on to the 6-month program. After the 6 months, this is what we're going to do next. Help you document what you need to. If you require a website, you should probably ignore that one. And HR onboarding to manage how people come in, people leave, what happens with everything around that. Just a moment. Okay, technical challenges. Let me just switch over here. Excuse me just a moment. Thank you. So these were the expected results of our intervention. We wanted to secure communication and enhance collaboration, efficient collaboration. Part of the DRP program, the Digital Resiliency Program, was to enroll these organizations to system subscriptions and software that they would be able to keep running going forward. So we're not offering the top of the range, best in class, highest costing software solutions. It's suggesting and agreeing with them, then implementing things that they can affordably and reasonably manage going forward. So that's the second point. And then of course the third is managing reducing the risk of compromise of accounts, data, identity, and access, which ties into device management as well. And then now the other thing was proactive cyber risk identification and mitigation. We found that most of these organizations were not very aware about what happens, especially since the digital landscape changes instantly. What used to work yesterday doesn't work today. What risk you'd managed last week is now a big active problem today. So just to show them how to proactively do that. There was rapid recovery for data loss, so a lot of backup and how to manage their backups, as well as constantly training the staff, the members, the volunteers, and whoever else they'd like to be security aware. So these are some of the key learnings. Organizations are willing to get started on their digital transformation journey, but they more often than not require guidance. These seem fairly obvious, but they're still very, very key takeaways for us. And the final one is that organizations in this journey benefit from a kickstart. Without plugging in, it would be very difficult to actually get them on the journey towards digital transformation. So we found this as a very key way to start the conversation about AI. First, secure the infrastructure, enhance how we see things and how we think as members of the organizations. Then now we can talk about AI. So with that, please allow me to introduce the next speaker. Shama. Thank you for attending.
All right. Hi, everyone. You're making me a little nervous because I know this is the last session of the conference and you all just had your lunch. So thank you for being here and thank you for participating. There were 80 people on the mentee responding, and the least percentage was staff resistance to staff and resistance from leadership. So it sounds like everyone is interested in this topic. So hopefully you'll have something fun to take away from here. My name is Shama, forgot to introduce myself. I am from India, but I'm representing Vera Solutions with my colleague Asedas. And why are we here? Who is Vera? We are actually a technology for good partner. We have been in the sector for 15 plus years. We have been implementing cloud-based solutions and technology implementations for organizations in the social sector. So most of the organizations that we work with are grant makers, funders, program implementers, a handful of impact investors, and so on. And obviously, because we are in the tech space, AI is the new hot word, and we have been talking and exploring about AI a lot, and that's what we are here to talk about as well. And just a little bit about Vera is we do have, sorry, I need a moving mic. We have 4 to 5 hubs. I work in the India office. I have a colleague from the Europe office. We have offices in Cape Town, Brazil, North America, and London as well. And, oh, thank you. That was very fast. And then we have probably more than 400 organizations that we have worked with in the last 15 plus years. Thank you. Sorry about that. This is easy for me. Yeah, and I think today, as part of Vera, what we want to do, and maybe I'll hand over to Asedas to introduce himself and also to sort of share how we ended up looking at the survey that TechSoup team did, what we took as learnings from it, and then what we created as a framework out of that. So maybe introduction, and then I'll hang it on here.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so what we found in going through our colleagues from TechSoup, their survey, is that there's a lot of overlap with our findings as well in our implementations. So what we found is there seems to be a universal demand for these types of tasks, content creation, efficiency and automation, but there's also specific leadership needs around strategic intelligence, program management, and what's holding most people back is limited digital maturity, which relates to what our colleagues have talked about at TechSoup. So I think a lot of the work they're doing is foundational to the AI work that we're doing. And there's also a huge organizational readiness gap. So how do we get there? How do we start thinking about AI in a different way? Again, not as a magic thing, but as another technology we can harness to support our work and efficiency. Whoop, back. So we've developed this AI readiness wheel, and I'll walk through a few of the different components. So first, we feel it's important as an organization to start with a values-aligned charter, and we'll walk through a little bit more about that process, but basically how your organization thinks about AI in relation to their core mission. For example, if you're an environmental foundation focused on that, you probably have concerns around the environmental and sustainability of AI solutions. And then data pipelines. Of course, it's critical that you have solid data pipelines. As Francesco mentioned, data is the fuel for AI. So we focus a lot on that, and not only just the data pipelines, but that the data results you're getting are deterministic and not probabilistic, which most ChatGPT, you ask it something, in most cases, it's just going to make something up. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. So we focus on making sure the answer is right every time. And then prioritizing use cases, which we'll get to a bit more later. We're going to go through an exercise to kind of show how you might prioritize use cases in your organization. And then an implementation roadmap. And finally, change management. It's a new way of working. People have a lot of both fear and uncertainty about the use of AI and as it relates to the security of their own jobs. And organizations like ours should be concerned about that as well. Cool, so I'll pass back to Shyaman. She's going to cover how we think about the values alignment.
Great, thank you, Asedas. I do want to add that we want to unpack these 5 pillars, but please note that this wheel that we saw, it's not a checklist. It's not something that you must have done one by one. It's just we want to sort of put that framework as a way for you to decide where do you need to put your energy. A lot of organizations that we speak to, some of them have a very strong data infrastructure, but they don't necessarily have a strong governance policy. So it's fine, that's normal. I think it's more about you figuring out where the gap is and hence where you need to put that action. So that's what the idea is. The first pillar that Asida's mentioned was values alignment. So what we have done is for each of these pillars, we have sort of categorized it into 5 maybe scale from curious to confident. How do we get from curious to becoming confident? So if you are at the very initial stage, if you're still curious and you're exploring, maybe not exploring, you're just thinking about AI, then as a starting point, probably values alignment means you need to figure out what does use of AI mean for your organization. And if you have not yet started doing that, maybe you can start doing that by just having honest internal conversations with your team. I'm sorry, I move a lot, so I feel like my voice is all over the place. But you probably just want to have some conversations with your team. You want to decide what are the risks and what are some principles that you want to abide by. And then that will hopefully take you to the exploring stage. An exploring stage is where you as an organization can start getting a better idea of how the values of your organization map with the different AI tools that are out there. I'm sure we all have been hearing news from OpenAI and Anthropic and whatnot, and we have probably opinions about it. But I think you as an organization have your own values, and you can start mapping those to these AI tools that you're exploring. And then you would go into the piloting phase. And piloting phase is where you actually start drafting these principles for your own organization. So maybe now you can have a version 1 of your, what we call as values charter. Some call it as AI policy. You can have a different name for it. But maybe you can now have an internal group of champions, people who are very passionate about it, who are already exploring it. They probably come together and they help draft this version 1 of the AI values charter that your organization can use as a starting point. And then that will take you to the next stage, which is integrating stage. And this is where you will formally adopt that charter, which means that you probably don't want to keep waiting for it to look perfect. You probably just want to have a version 1 that your organization can start using. And of course, as you experiment more, you learn more. This is a new topic, right? AI, we are all learning about it. So as you learn more, you will probably want to keep revisiting that charter. You will probably want to keep updating it. And that's where you can have, we have suggested quarterly review with the leadership, but it doesn't have to be quarterly, but it would definitely benefit from a cadence that you can have around this. And then hopefully that will take you to the leading stage, which is where once you have published your charter, you're probably in a position where you can share more. You're all part of this great network, EAPN, so hopefully you can then all just come back together. And I'm hoping that going out of this session after 6 months, some of you are maybe meeting again and just sharing your charter with each other and sharing how you have thought about it and what kind of policies and principles are you following. I think that maybe one thing to add over here is we at Vera Solutions, you can check it out on our website. We can share it after the session as well. But we have put together a few, 9 to be specific, principles of responsible AI. These are actually based on industry standard frameworks and OECD principles that we have seen. And we found these to be super relevant for organizations. And you're welcome to look at that as a starting point if you haven't started giving it a thought. There are a few sources out there as well. For example, N10, whose full form I've forgotten. They also have a policy, an AI policy template. So there are a few resources that we can share if you want to have a starting point for your own discussions. The next pillar, do you want to talk about data pipeline? Okay, I'll go ahead. So when we talk about data pipeline, this is the second pillar that we recommended in the framework. This is where we all know AI is only as useful as the context that you give in, and I'm sure we all have heard garbage in, garbage out several times. It applies to AI as well. So if you have scattered data, you have inconsistently formatted data, and you have siloed systems, then they're not talking to each other, then probably your results will be mediocre from your AI tool as well. And that's why at the initial stage, you first want to map what you have. You first want to understand where does your data live, who owns it, is it clean or not. Once you are in the exploring stage, which is hopefully the next stage, that's where you start identifying your data quality problems, and you start identifying if there are any gaps in the current data that you have. So at this time, you're just basically figuring out your data pipeline. And then you go on to the next stage. If you're in your piloting stage, you probably have done that mapping and you have started building your data pipeline for different use cases. Some of you might be using Salesforce, Airtable, maybe you're using Excel sheet for your data. I don't know, whatever suits best for your successful management of data is what you're tracking. But based on those pipelines, you have maybe started identifying use cases. So start with one use case. If you haven't started that, maybe just think of one use case that you can start with. And then that will help you move on to the next stage of integrating. And this is very simple. You're just making sure that your systems are in place. It is all ready. It is holding the data that you need for the use case that you're considering. And I apologize for the wavelength of my voice. I feel like I can hear it. And then finally is the leading stage. And leading stage is where you start using AI to actually surface insights in real time. So most organizations that we actually speak to, they are usually somewhere in the middle. They have data, it's just not always ready, and that's what we've noticed in most of our instances. So what we can do is we can probably a quick win that we would recommend is doing a little bit of a self-assessment to understand what you have, whether your data is clean or not, whether the right people have access to it or not, and if you have the right governance around it. If it's helpful, we can also share a self-assessment with you later on that you can use to sort of figure it out. But as an example, you can see we want you to ask yourselves if you know what data you have. Do you have clean and consistent data? Is it the access and the ownership and policies, are these all in the right place or not? And that's what the second pillar is about. The third pillar, use case prioritization. This one is important. We do have a fun exercise or a workshop that we will do based on this one. But use case prioritization is where we recommend an approach where you first determine what's actually costing you time or maybe quality, and then you ask whether AI is the right tool for it or not. So if you are at the curious stage, you're probably maybe just picking one task and you want to try that out with an AI tool. You can explore Claude. I don't know if you've heard, I've spoken to a few people, a lot of you are using ChatGPT for conversations, which is fine. You can also use Claude, which has a free, I don't know if you've heard of it, but they have a huge discount for their Claude for nonprofit product, which you can use. But of course, you can use whichever tool you want. And then you can actually start sort of understanding. The goal of exploring a tool is to basically develop an intuition for what the tool can do and cannot do. That's the main idea behind it. But that will hopefully take you to the exploring stage, and that is when you are a little bit more mature. You can maybe start running discovery workshops with your team, with the different departments within your organizations, and maybe you can start scoring those use cases. So you can sort of, let's say you have 10 use cases, and you can decide what's the impact and the effort of this use case, and that will help you shortlist which ones to start with. And then in the piloting stage, you have done these discovery workshops. You would probably have a nice backlog of use cases that you want to try out. You maybe can have an impact effort matrix as well against them. It will help you narrow down which use cases you want to start with. And for the ones that you then identify, you can also define the success matrix before you actually start building them. And then integrating means eventually measuring ROI, return of investment, across what is live. We think a quick win here could be stress testing a couple of use cases, report writing, donor communication, I don't know, summaries of something that is concrete. The fun part is today we will be together working on an ROI for some use cases that hopefully will resonate with some of you. So even if you're sleepy or in a mood for shopping because it's the last day, maybe wait for that session. And then at the end, if you're in the leading stage, you'll hopefully reach a point where you're feeling a little bit more confident in identifying what the right use cases are. So, of course, if you're in the leading stage, we would imagine that it means you can create your own use case. You can share it with the peers in your sector. You can collaborate a little bit more, and you can maybe be an example for your peers over here. That said, we also at Vera Solutions, we do host a peer learning group for organizations. We have quite a number of organizations who come together on a regular basis, and they just share with each other the kind of usage that they're doing. It's more of a safe learning space, and you're welcome to join that if you want to. I will move on to the next pillar, which is the implementation roadmap. And this is the fourth pillar that we had shared in a wheel. And this one is basically to encourage you to have a plan where you can actually build and deploy all the good use cases that you have shortlisted for yourself. So if you are in the early stages, if you're just exploring, then maybe you just have one AI tool that you're exploring. We like Claude a lot, so we have mentioned Claude for nonprofits. In the exploring stage, you will probably start figuring out how that connects with what you already have. If you're familiar with Claude, you might have heard the term MCP, or even with other AI tools, you might have heard the word MCP, which is where we can now actually connect multiple tools with AI tools using MCP connectors. So I've personally used Claude for Excel, where I have finance data in a budget sheet, and I have been able to sort of pull insights using Claude for Excel, which is an add-on from that Excel sheet. So that's what you're doing in exploring stage. You're trying to figure out how do all of these, the things that you have, the tools that you have, how do they connect with your AI tool. And then in the piloting stage, you are hopefully running a time-boxed experiment. So with the real users, where you're actually tracking the usage of that. And you're trying to understand the usage, but you're also trying to understand, is this really changing anything? The goal is not to see, are we using it or not using it? The goal is to understand, is this actually changing something for me in the organization? And then in the integrating, you're hopefully over time building a roadmap. You have timelines and budget. You're hopefully developing MCP connectors if you have moved past that stage as well. And then eventually, you're operating something like a center of excellence. We at Vera have a center of excellence led by Acedas, and you can have a team that basically owns that AI strategy and capability building across your organization. And that's what your implementation roadmap could look like. And then the final pillar, after which I will shut up, is change management. This is where, as with most technology tools, AI will also miserably fail if people don't trust it, if they're not involved in the decisions that you're making around it, and if they don't have the skills to use it, right? So if you're still in the initial stages, we suggest doing a survey. So survey your team, ask them, try to understand their fears and their attitude. And it's not to dismiss them, it's more to sort of really understand what are you working with. And then you would be creating a safe space for them to maybe experiment, to fail. This is also where the survey can help you sort of plan a structure of what kind of enablement sessions or introductory sessions do I want to conduct for my staff members. You would then, as you're progressing, you will start training your team, you will hold these workshops, you will celebrate wins, you will have some governance structures that you design around them. And then you will start building AI literacy into the onboarding for staff, as an example, or some other areas as well, in other areas of the operations. We would also suggest that this is where you track the usage patterns, because it's going to be helpful in further evolving your change management around that. And then lastly, you probably, if you're in the leading stage, what that could look like is maybe you are embedding AI in your learning and development culture and your curriculum. And it's not a one-time thing. It is something that is ongoing. And as this space evolves, you are also building the capacity of your team. So again, a quick win over here could be that maybe you just go back and identify 2 or 3 people who in the organization who are already curious about AI. You nominate them as your informal champions, and then you give them space and permission to explore. So that's what we wanted to share about with these 5 pillars. And again, you don't need to be a large organization, or you don't need to have a big budget. This framework is essentially to sort of help you set that intention and set some structure around how do you go about it. And like I said, not a checklist. You don't have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can keep going back to 4, 3, wherever the need is. But yeah, hopefully this gives you something to start with. And I think we have one final question for you all in the mentee. which is mostly, now that you know the 5 pillars, we are curious to understand where do you think your organization is at on that scale. So I don't know if, oh, yes, there it is. Let's see, so we have 93 people, not one has responded yet. Just to be clear, 1 is where you haven't started, and 5 is fully ready. So it's a scale that you can use to sort of estimate where you think you're at with your pipeline, data pipeline readiness, value aligned charter, change management, use cases that you're thinking, and so on. This will just help us understand the room and where they're at. And while you do that, I will invite Acedas to take us to a fun section after this, but let's wait for the results.
Ooh,
Values aligned charter has the highest score.
Yeah.
You don't need this, right?
No, I don't need it. Okay. Looks great. We'll maybe hop back on there in a second while I talk about the workshop. So one of the things at Vera that we focus on is actually solving problems. And we don't consider AI a general tool to solve all problems. So we've had to really, I mean, initially we maybe did, but over the course of the last few years in our own implementations, in experiments internally, we've really focused on making things, making sure that the projects we work on actually add value. So as part of this workshop, we're going to break into groups. I think maybe groups of 4 is better. And we have 3 use cases. So we'll put a QR code up on the screen and you can scan it. If each group has a person with a laptop, it's probably much easier because we'll be working with a spreadsheet. We need to fill in, I think, what, 10, 12 fields. So it's not too intense, but what we're hoping will happen, we have these scenario cards, and as a group, you'll go through different risk factors, different other mission alignment, other factors that should help you kind of pair that with the potential monetary ROI of an AI use case and come up with a go, no-go, and then present that back to the rest of the group. So I think we can maybe self-organize into 4 groups. What do you think? And we're going to focus on prioritizing use cases based on ROI, values alignment, and then context readiness. So we have these 3 fictitious organizations that we've built use cases around. So if we can kind of organize into 4 groups somehow, can we do that? Oh, 4 groups, not groups of 4, sorry. And then each group will have a scribe, and that scribe will hopefully has a laptop and will open the spreadsheet. It can be, you can do it from mobile on a Google, it's a Google Sheet, but it'll be easier on a laptop. Okay, yeah. Is it too many? Okay, 5 groups. Whoop. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, maybe 4 is not enough. So maybe groups of 15 people, maybe. And then if each group can assign someone with a laptop to scan the QR code, and we'll assign you we'll tell you which one to scan in a second. Okay, if this group can do the first use case, it'd be great. And we'll be going between the groups helping out. So you'll open that up and there's a PDF. On the PDF, there's a link to a spread. I'm looking at you because you have the laptop. Have you guys assigned a scribe in this group? It's usually the person who's holding a laptop. Yeah? Okay, great. There's not much to fill out. You see everything in bright yellow. The instructions are on the card. So when you scan the QR code, you'll get a PDF. Do the last one, but unfortunately, I think maybe that QR code doesn't work. Calculator will calculate based on the risk and the other factors in the spreadsheet. Okay, cool. So, I'd like to go through this, just explain a little bit. Maybe someone can read it out loud to the group, and then we'll go through the calculator after. And I'll actually see if I can put the calculator. So the things we're going to look at is very specific use cases in the context. And on their face, you'll look at them in the card and say, maybe this makes sense to do from a financial perspective. In this particular use case, the annual staff cost greater than the implementation cost, and this is based on research that 80% optimization of that process, meaning AI can eliminate 80% of that. So on its face, it looks like probably a good thing to pursue. Yeah.
We are supposed to discuss the yes, so I guess you've all read. So maybe let's hear your thoughts.
Line 36.
It's okay, you don't have to have a perfect answer. But we will wrap this up now, and we will give you 10 seconds. But if someone sees me, yeah. Music. Okay, we have 10 seconds to wrap up.
It's not moving.
If the internet helps.
Buffer. You have a buffer.
10 plus.
Plus buffer.
No music. It's supposed to play Mission Impossible.
Okay.
Do it on this. No music?
I think everybody should be wrapped up. So the scribes, or if you have a rapporteur, to come, each group will just kind of present our findings. And again, the point of this isn't realism. It's a little bit, but also it's meant to engage in these conversations about these things. And maybe the next time you have a use case like this, or in the future if you have a use case, you think about other factors other than efficiency and cost savings. Okay, does everyone want to go back to their original or just move to kind of regular positions? We can also do that. What do you think?
Yeah, they can sing
Yeah.
Yeah, because. Okay, can we all turn back? We all love a little bit of a chaos, and clearly we had a lot of chaos today. So let's bring it back to the room. Is there a volunteer who wants to start? Is that what we're doing, scribing?
Reading back.
Reading back, yeah. Group 1, do you want to read back your, can we go to the next slide? The next slide. That's it, yeah. All right, group 1, that's you? Whatever you want, whatever works for you. This is group 1 scenario with Amani Foundation, so let's hear how they track this.
Okay, so so basically we recommend to proceed based on increased program reach, the things you filled in basically, the discussions you had.
You don't have to go through all, just some, like the conversation that you had.
Summarize.
Okay. Very fast. Don't you worry, I'm from Kenya.
Okay, good evening. Hey, you don't want to greet me. I'm from Kenya. We love greetings. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all well. So with my amazing team, we were genius people, very intellectual. We made this decision very fast. So our net profit for after making that decision, and we had a score of 70%, and we are strong to proceed. Clap for us. Okay, so our net profit for 1 year is 11,760 US dollars, and payback is 5.5, and the 3-year net value is 47.280. Sorry, I'm not able to go back to our initials, but just focus on the good side of the news. So this one is based on one thing when it comes to laptop imegoma, msijali. So when it comes to how much time and money this will cost us is about 25%. And again, when it comes to how it will advance our mission, it will advance our mission at 65%, you can imagine. So this one is determined by how many people we'll reach more people. And then again, we'll have a quality data. And then the speed, we love doing things quickly. And then when it comes to how will this change your team's capacity, we believe that we learn every day. So even when there is AI on board, we need to prompt it every now and then. And then again, my capacity, I went to school for almost over 7 years, so AI cannot take up my job. I'll still need to be there, but I'll need to learn every now and then. That is what my team said. And then the last one, when it comes to the risk level, this one is determined by the aspect of what rules and regulations or the protection aspect or consent do we have in our country. So this one will have to have allies and also have a buy-in from our government. For us from Kenya, we'll find it easy because they listen. And if they don't listen, you know what we do. And also the other countries can also employ that. So that is all from our team. Thank you so much.
Well done. Okay, group 2, I think. Is this thing even on? Hello? Hello? Okay, never mind.
I'll change the battery.
Okay. Group, that one's not working. Hello? Group 2?
Can use this one.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, sir? Do you want to use this or this? Choose your weapon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Theodros. I think this for the AI return over investment and mission impact assessment we conducted on the second one, and the net benefit for year one was 19,321 USD, and the payback month is 353.6. Year value is 19,964, and the mission plus capacity is 51%. So it is very weak because on the okay. Program reach, special program reach. So it is. The baseline was 3, and after the artificial intelligence, the return over investment become 4. When you come to the data quality for reporting and decision, the baseline was 3, and after the AI implementation, it becomes 4. Speed for insights, especially in the perspective of data and decision, 1 changed to 4. So the mission impact score, average weighted percentage become 40%. When we come to the likelihood and the impact, sorry, no, I miss. Yeah, this one. So data privacy, especially in the exposure for VI AI processing, the likelihood is 3, that means possible, and the impact is 4, that is major. So it becomes likelihood times impact, it becomes 12. Bias and fairness, the likelihood is 2 and the impact is 2. So the score becomes 4. In terms of accuracy, it is 4-5. That means it is likely and the impact is catastrophic. So in all those categories, the percentage, okay. So it becomes 51%, and the team decision, I think, no-go decision.
Thank you. And did someone else have this bright futures? Can you come up and see if we can give a contrasting viewpoint, or maybe you came to the same conclusion?
So we were also brighter futures, and we landed on a lot of risks. The payback months landed on 29.4 months in terms of the yield that we would get from implementation. The net benefit for the first year would have been a negative of $5,920. The 3-year net value would have only yielded $1,640. Our overall mission and capacity score was negative 46%. So it was pretty bad in terms of implementation. The overall recommendation was marginal. So in terms of the scope that we were given, we were told to reassess the brief. Specific risks, data quality, there was a massive data quality risk. There were some improvements in terms of time freed for higher value work. There was some improvement in terms of error and rework rate and staff satisfaction. But there were catastrophic risks for data privacy, bias, hallucination, staff displacement, vendor dependency, and regulatory non-compliance. So in terms of the actual implementation, it's probably also a no-go.
Thank you very much. And then the final group, the back here. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Group 3. Our net benefit is actually negative. Negative 53,000. And the 3-year benefit net value is negative 121. Anyway, we had very optimistic members in our group on what impact AI would have. So program reach, they were currently at 3, after AI to 4. Data quality and reporting, improvement also 3 to 4. Insight in data and decision making, huge jump to 5, but still the overall was a 48% change. On how will this change your team's capacity, time freed up for higher value work. There was an proposed improvement 1 to 4. Error rework rate, improvement 1 to 3. Then burnout and satisfaction, 2 to 5. So an excellent no burnout, but still 69% net change. Terms of data privacy, 5 for likelihood, 4 for impact. So very likely exposing data, and also a major impact. So, and it was almost the same, but then we put in a risk discount factor of 50%, and again we ended up with a weak system where we need to rework the use case. Yeah. So even with very optimistic members, we need to, it's not enough. We need to build systems first. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, apologies for a little bit of chaos. We were hoping for a bit of smaller groups, but I hope that was fun in a way to talk about AI in non-technical and non-monetary terms and just have some kind of more mental models for thinking about these things as you go back to your organizations. No.
Sorry. I do want to say that what we did today, this exercise was not easy. So please pat yourselves, because I know that this needed a lot of thinking, a lot of discussion, a lot of disagreements also happened. But I think what we also hope is that when you go back and sit with your own organization team members, you will be able to actually have a bit more intentional discussion around what you have really been thinking about. I felt like as I was listening to all of you, two takeaways that I had was clearly based on the results that we saw, not every use case is for AI. So if someone comes and tells you that, yep, AI can do it, it probably can, but maybe ask yourself, should it do it or not? And then the second thing that I was realizing was all of you came back with weak use case, which is quite possible based on what your risk appetite is and all of that. But this also reflects that there's a little bit more behind the scenes work that needs to be done for us to be AI ready or for these use cases to be AI ready. So I'm hoping that you can take this ROI to your team members and work with it and work on a few more use cases. And we do really like AI, and we are actually very hopeful with how it's changing. That signal meant he absolutely is in love with it because he does that 24/7. But yeah, I'm hoping that you can actually go back and use that tool and a framework and work with your own teams. Because over here you were at different organizations with many different multiple viewpoints, and there were quite a few disagreements as well, which may or may not happen with your organization. I'm done. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. But I think that's the...
Thanks, all. Oh, yeah, so we have some free resources here for you. We have an AI readiness self-assessment. And we have, I think Shama mentioned our AI peer learning groups. It's just people getting together on a Zoom, talking through their different AI use cases, their products they're using, building. I think it could be interesting. And then finally, the digital activism resources from TechSoup. That's it. Thanks, everyone.